Hi, I'm Eric Jacobus. I spent over half my life making low-budget action movies, getting punched in the face and falling on concrete, until I finally got my big break as the stuntman for Kratos in God of War. When the God of War team asked how I would approach action for their sequel, God of War Ragnarok, I wanted to set us apart with a totally new vision, a scientific model of action design. And to do that, I had to study the science of violence, to understand what human violence is. So I started my research adventure right here, and I learned a lot. It turns out that there's a ton of books about violence, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's sort of built into our institutions, if it's innate, if it's just entirely bad, we should never do it. This one's about frustration causing violence, whether it comes from our animal nature. But what exactly is human violence? Well, Darwin's Origin of Species pretty much set the standard. Humans descend from a primate, the last common ancestor, which we share with modern chimpanzees, which left the forest for the savanna, encountered all kinds of dangerous predators and harsh climate, and various components evolved over time so that we could survive. Our language came from ape-like communication, our tool usage came from ape-like tools, and our intelligence from ape-like intelligence. But this approach treats violence very differently. It's treated as a kind of evolutionary stowaway that's stuck around in a lower limbic part of the brain. So by this view, violence just shows how animalistic and ape-like we really are. Okay, but that still doesn't explain what makes it different from animal combat. Well, by extension, our higher component parts like language, religion, and intelligence are supposed to sort of fight off this animalistic aggression. Okay, this is like asking, what's a truck? And answering, well, it comes from a car, which came from the horse and buggy, which kept the wheels and axles, but the steering mechanism got updated. It's usually more expensive, it's worse for the environment. That would not be a definition of a truck. And yet, that's exactly how the sciences describe violence. So by a weird kind of process of elimination, I set out to build a mechanical definition of human violence. And turns out, surprise, it's nothing like animal combat. Also note, combat is only interspecific kind-on-kind combat, not predation. The first major difference is that animals only use their natural weapons in combat, but humans use objects. And this is surprising because animals do use objects to acquire food, but it's like they're firewalled from using objects in combat. Second, animal combat tends to be non-lethal because their weapons are paired with their defenses, so it's frequent and safe for setting the hierarchy. But in human combat, simple rocks can break bones and sharp sticks can pierce skin and organs, making it more lethal. And last, animals know exactly what the weapon is going to be in combat, but humans have no idea. Look, try and guess what weapon is behind my back. You can't. All you can do is try and assess my gestures or signs or eye movement to try and figure out whether it's a knife or a gun, nunchucks. Oh jeez, these things are dangerous. Maybe it's my Acheulean hand axe. Or maybe it's a book, you don't know. Or maybe I don't have anything. You don't know what I'm bringing to the fight, you don't know how the weapon might change during the fight, and if I say I give up, I might come back with a bigger weapon or more people. The weapon doesn't even have to be present, just the thought of what might be there is enough to make your mind start spinning with possibilities. And this is why human violence escalates in ways that animal combat never can. And this escalation lends to its apocalyptic nature. If we act too fast, we might be wrong, but the longer we remain in this game of tactics, the more we escalate, and the more dangerous it becomes to us and everyone else too. This mutual anticipation traps us in this never-ending battle of tactics. I'm anticipating you, anticipating me, anticipating you, without any certainty over the weapon, or if there even is one. This mutual nesting lends to what I call the recursional aspect of violence. Now, unlike animal combat, which is not a crisis to animals, human combat is a crisis to us and to everybody else. Perhaps it's the worst crisis of all. Clearly, it's different. So what is it? It's actually very simple. Human violence is reciprocal, object-based aggression, or ROBA. That's it. That's what's different. Why haven't any of you written this down? So either you're an animal and combat is a closed loop system with clearly defined non-lethal weapons, or you're a human and the combat loop is wide open. Anything can be a weapon and anyone can be a threat. Now, since apocalyptic human combat's not exactly good at setting a hierarchy, we obviously need better ways to do this. The component features approach says that our higher components like intelligence and language evolved to help us survive the harsh environment. And a secondary function is that these can also be used to combat our animal aggression. Now, I call this the bottom-up approach to understanding humans. But this bottom-up approach has failed to describe violence in a mechanical way. So I have a different approach, the top-down approach, which basically flips the script. If ROBA came first as the prime differentiator between us and animals, then the environment was far less important than we've been led to believe. Instead, we had to figure out how to survive each other. This apocalyptic violence ripped a permanent black hole into human relations. But this same power can generate equally infinite recursive forms like lithics, kinship, sacrifice, art, language, all the things that make us human, which emerge specifically to defer Roba. Violence is no longer some stowaway, it's our operating system, and it's up to us to figure out how to use it. We have to reformulate Roba into language, into sacrifice, into art. We have to choreograph fight scenes. We have to make God of War Ragnarok or the world will end. And so we got the contract, and we've been in business ever since. If you'd like to know more, I invite you to read all about it in my book, If These Fists Could Talk, a stuntman's unflinching take on violence. You can get it on Amazon in both hard copy and ebook format. Give it a read. Let me know what you think.